You wake up in the morning and the very first thought that crawls into your mind is not about your goals, not about your mission, not about the life you could be building. It's about them. The person you are afraid of losing. The person who takes up space in your head before the sun has even risen. And right there, before the day even begins, you've already surrendered your power. You've already given your energy, your focus, your future to someone who is holding you back. The person you are afraid of losing is already controlling you, already deciding the limits of your life. And here is the truth: the person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. We grow up believing a lie. That attachment equals safety. That clinging equals love. That if you lose someone, your world collapses. That without them, you are nothing. But that's not love, that's fear disguised as devotion. That's not connection, that's dependency wrapped in anxiety. And every day you live like that, every day you chain your potential to someone else's validation, you are digging yourself deeper into a prison that you built with your own hands. And the walls of that prison are made of one sentence: what if I lose them? But I'll tell you the truth, you've already lost yourself. Listen carefully, the person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. Because fear is not neutral. Fear is heavy. Fear bends your spine. Fear makes you walk smaller, talk softer, dream shorter. Fear tells you, don't shine too bright, they might leave. Fear whispers, don't grow too fast, they won't keep up. Fear screams, don't become who you are meant to be, because then they'll see you no longer need them. And so you shrink. And so you stop. And so you rot slowly inside a comfort zone you didn't even choose, it was chosen for you. And you call it love, but it's just fear in disguise. Most people think the greatest pain is losing someone. But that's a lie. The greatest pain is staying with someone at the cost of losing yourself. The greatest pain is burying your dreams while keeping them alive. The greatest pain is waking up 10 years later and realizing you traded your fire for their comfort. You gave away your future for their approval. You clipped your wings just so they wouldn't feel insecure watching you fly. That's not love. That's not loyalty. That's slow death. The refrain must be burned into your mind: the person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. Say it again. The person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. Say it until it hurts. Because it is the truth you've been avoiding, the truth you've been numbing with excuses, the truth that explains why you feel stuck, why you feel tired, why you feel like every step forward gets pulled 2 steps back. It's not because you're not talented. It's not because you're not worthy. It's not because the universe is against you. It's because you are dragging someone in your shadow who was never meant to walk in your light. Think about it. How many chances have you passed up because you were afraid of how they'd react? How many times have you stayed quiet when your soul wanted to scream because you were afraid they wouldn't approve? How many nights have you laid awake, not dreaming about your vision, but worrying about their opinion? Count them. Count the hours. Count the years. Every single one is proof. Proof that the person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. And maybe it's not even their fault. Maybe they're not malicious. Maybe they don't even know they're doing it. But it doesn't matter. Because the result is the same. You are not living at full power. You are not stepping into your destiny. You are not free. And freedom is the oxygen of the soul. Without it, you suffocate. Without it, you shrink. Without it, you die alive. And the worst death is not the one at the end of your life. It's the one you live every day when you betray who you are for someone you're afraid to lose. Here is the paradox. The people who truly love you will never ask you to shrink. The people who are meant to walk with you will never be afraid of your growth. The people who belong in your future will never chain you to the past. So if someone is making you smaller, if someone is keeping you stuck, if someone is holding you hostage with the fear of loss, then they're not your person. They're your cage. And the key has been in your hand the entire time. You just haven't had the courage to use it. Because courage means risking their absence. Courage means risking their disappointment. Courage means risking their silence. But the only thing riskier than letting them go is keeping them forever. Because the longer you keep them, the further you drift from yourself. And the further you drift from yourself, the closer you get to regret. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who had a dream of starting his own company. He had the skills, he had the vision, he had the hunger. But his partner kept saying, "It's too risky. What if it fails? What if we lose everything? What if we can't handle the stress?" And so he waited. Year after year, he waited. He told himself, "I can't risk losing them. I can't risk breaking their trust." And then one day, he looked around. 10 years had passed. His dream was gone. His energy was gone. His fire was gone. And the partner? They left anyway. He lost them anyway. And then he realized the cruelest truth. The person he was afraid of losing had already stolen his dream long before they walked away. They had already held him back. This is not just his story. This is your story. This is the story of millions of people who could have been great, who could have been legendary, who could have left a mark, but they didn't. Not because they weren't capable. Not because they weren't chosen. Not because they weren't enough. But because they were afraid of losing someone who wasn't afraid of losing them. And fear kept them small. Fear kept them silent. Fear kept them stuck. And by the time they realized it, it was too late. But you, yes, you, still have time. You are hearing this now because you are not finished yet. Because there is still a choice left in your hands. You can either continue to live in fear, continue to let someone else's opinion cage you, or you can decide, right here, right now, that your life is worth more than their approval. That your destiny is worth more than their comfort. That your fire is worth more than their fear. Because the person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. You have been taught to believe that loyalty means never letting go. But loyalty to someone else means nothing if it comes at the cost of betrayal to yourself. You think you are being noble by sacrificing your dreams for them. But sacrifice without purpose is not noble. It is slavery. And you were not born to be a slave to anyone's insecurity. You were not born to shrink so that someone else can feel tall. You were not born to dim your light so that someone else won't be blinded. You were born to burn, to shine, to set this world on fire with the life only you can live. And if someone cannot stand in that fire with you, then they were never meant for you in the first place. Do you see the pattern yet? The people you are most afraid of losing are the ones who often keep you from gaining yourself. You bend your schedule for them. You bend your values for them. You bend your vision for them. And the more you bend, the more you break. Until one day you look in the mirror and realize you no longer recognize the person staring back at you. That's the cost of fear. That's the price of attachment. That's the slow decay of your spirit under the weight of what if I lose them? But the question you should be asking is, what if I lose myself? Because that is the loss you cannot recover from. Say it with me. The person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. Say it louder. Say it until your own excuses start to crack. Say it until your fear starts to tremble. Because this is not just a sentence, it is the mirror you've been avoiding, the mirror that shows you why you're stuck, why you're tired, why you feel like no matter how hard you work, nothing moves. It's because you are carrying weight that was never yours to carry. It's because you are chained to someone else's opinion of what you should be. And chains don't fall off on their own. You have to break them. Think of history. Think of every person who made a difference. They all had to let go of someone. They all had to risk being misunderstood, being abandoned, being left behind. But in that risk, they found themselves. In that risk, they discovered freedom. In that risk, they unlocked destiny. Because the truth is simple, you cannot hold on to who is keeping you small and still become who you are meant to be. You cannot chase your future while clutching your past. You cannot rise while dragging someone who is determined to stay on the ground. You must choose. And the longer you delay that choice, the deeper the regret that will come. I'll give you another story. A woman dreamed of writing books. She had notebooks full of ideas, stories, worlds waiting to be born. But every time she shared her dream, the person she loved would laugh. "That's unrealistic," he'd say. "You'll never make money from that. Be practical." And she believed him. She put her notebooks away. She got a job she hated. She lived a life that suffocated her. And years later, when she finally gathered the courage to leave, when she finally looked back at those notebooks, she realized the words were still there, but she was not the same. The fire had cooled. The stories had died inside her. And she understood the truth. She didn't just lose time. She lost herself. Because the person she was afraid of losing had already stolen the writer inside her long before she left. And I'm telling you, you cannot let that be your story. Because you are not just holding back a dream, you are holding back generations. You are holding back the people who need your gift, the lives that could be touched by your courage, the world that could be changed by your fire. And all of it is being suffocated by one fear, the fear of losing someone. But let me remind you, if they truly loved you, they would never ask you to stay small. If they truly believed in you, they would never chain you to mediocrity. If they truly belonged in your future, they would never hold you hostage to your past. So stop being afraid of losing them. Start being afraid of losing yourself. Because the person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. Now imagine for a moment, what would your life look like if you weren't afraid? What would your life look like if you didn't wake up worrying about their approval, their opinion, their reaction? Imagine the energy you would have. Imagine the risks you would take. Imagine the growth you would unlock. That version of you already exists. It's waiting behind the wall of fear you've built. And the only way to reach it is to let go of the person you're afraid of losing. To risk their absence so you can reclaim your presence. To risk their silence so you can finally hear your own voice. To risk their departure so you can finally arrive in your own life. This is the moment where the myth must die. The myth that says love is about clinging. The myth that says loyalty means self-betrayal. The myth that says your worth is tied to someone else's presence. Break that myth. Burn it down. Because real love liberates. Real connection amplifies. Real loyalty strengthens. And anything less than that is not love, it's bondage. And bondage is not worth your life. So I ask you, who are you really afraid of losing? And more importantly, why? What power do they hold over you that you are not willing to reclaim? Why is their comfort worth more than your destiny? Why is their approval worth more than your freedom? Why is their presence worth more than your soul? The questions cut deep, but they must be asked. Because until you answer them, until you face them, you will keep living small, you will keep waiting, you will keep shrinking. And life will pass you by while you hold on to someone who is already holding you back. And this is where the energy builds. This is where you start to feel it in your chest, that fire, that urgency, that voice that says, enough. Enough shrinking. Enough waiting. Enough giving away your power to someone who never deserved it. Enough dying alive just to keep them comfortable. Enough. The person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. And today, you must choose them or you. Their comfort or your freedom. Their approval or your destiny. There is no middle ground. There is no compromise. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot be fully alive while half dead inside. You must choose. And when you finally do, when you finally cut the chain, when you finally step into the fire of your own life, you will realize the truth. You never really lost them. They were never yours. But you will gain yourself. And that is a gain no one can take away from you. Most people spend their whole life waiting for permission. Waiting for someone else to say it's okay to dream bigger. Waiting for someone else to validate that they are good enough. Waiting for someone else to guarantee they won't be abandoned. But life doesn't wait. Opportunities don't wait. Time doesn't wait. And while most people are waiting, their chance slips away forever. Most people stay small because they are more afraid of losing a person than losing themselves. But that person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. Think about it. Most people don't start the business, not because they lack ideas, but because they're afraid their partner will call them crazy. Most people don't move to a new city, not because they lack courage, but because they fear leaving behind someone who doesn't even believe in them. Most people don't speak their truth, not because they don't know it, but because they fear rejection from someone they think they can't live without. That fear is the leash. That fear is the collar. That fear is the invisible chain keeping you in place. And every day you stay chained, you confirm the lie, I can't live without them. But the truth is, you can't live without yourself. And the longer you try, the more you suffocate. Now contrast this with the few, the rare, the ones who break free. That person who looks fear in the face and decides anyway. That person who risks being misunderstood, risks being abandoned, risks standing alone. That person who says, if I lose them, so be it. I refuse to lose myself. And the moment they make that choice, everything shifts. Energy returns. Purpose ignites. Freedom floods in like oxygen. That person begins to rise. That person begins to build. That person begins to live. Not in fear, not in dependency, not in shadows, but in truth. And that's the difference between most people and that person. Most people cling. That person lets go. Most people suffocate. That person breathes. Mini story 1. There was a young athlete. He trained every day in secret, dreaming of competing at the highest level. But every time he mentioned it to his girlfriend, she scoffed. That's unrealistic. That's selfish. Why can't you just be normal? He loved her. He feared losing her. So he trained less. He compromised. He told himself he'd find a balance. But the more he compromised, the weaker he became. His dream began to die. Until one day, he realized she wasn't afraid of his failure, she was afraid of his success. She knew that if he rose, she'd lose control. And in that moment, he made the hardest choice. He let her go. It hurt. But within months, he was competing again. Within years, he was on a national stage. And when he stood there with a medal around his neck, he realized the truth. The person he was afraid of losing was already holding him back. By losing her, he found himself. Most people would rather die in comfort than live in freedom. Most people would rather betray their calling than risk someone walking away. Most people settle. But settling is just slow death with nice decorations. Settling is painting over rot. Settling is smiling while your soul screams. That person, the one you could become, doesn't settle. That person risks heartbreak for freedom. That person risks loneliness for destiny. That person risks temporary pain for permanent growth. Because that person knows the cost of staying stuck is far greater than the cost of letting go. Let's talk discipline versus feelings. Most people live by feelings. I can't leave them, I love them. I can't hurt them, I'd feel guilty. I can't change, it feels too scary. Feelings make them weak. Feelings make them slaves. But that person doesn't live by feelings, they live by discipline. Discipline says, my destiny matters more than my comfort. Discipline says, I will not betray myself for approval. Discipline says, I would rather cry in freedom than smile in chains. And that's why that person wins. That's why that person lives fully alive while others die slowly in comfort zones. Mini story 2. A man dreamed of being an artist. He painted at night, poured his soul into the canvas. But his parents called it foolish. His friends mocked him. His partner said, "You're wasting your time. Get a real job." He feared losing their respect, so he put down the brush. He buried his gift. For years he lived someone else's script. Until one night, staring at his reflection, he saw the emptiness in his own eyes. He realized he wasn't tired, he was scattered. Pulled in every direction but his own. That night, he picked up the brush again. He risked their disappointment. He risked their abandonment. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, he came alive again. And the ones who truly loved him? They stayed. The ones who didn't? They left. And that was the proof. The person he was afraid of losing was already holding him back. Responsibility. This is the next cluster. Most people blame. I can't succeed because they don't support me. I can't grow because they keep holding me back. But responsibility means owning your choice. You allowed their opinion to dictate your actions. You allowed their comfort to chain your growth. You allowed fear to dominate your destiny. Responsibility doesn't mean it's your fault, but it means it's your fight. And until you own it, you can't change it. That person, the one you could be, owns it all. They don't say, I can't because of them. They say, I will despite them. They don't say, I'm stuck because they won't let me go. They say, I'm free because I chose to let go. That's the shift. That's the power. That's the key. Mini story 3. There was a woman who always dreamed of traveling the world. But every time she spoke about it, her husband dismissed it. We don't have the money. We don't have the time. It's dangerous. Grow up. She feared losing him, so she stayed small. She stayed home. She stayed stuck. Years passed. Her body aged. Her spirit dimmed. And then one day, he left her anyway, for someone else. And as she sat alone, she realized the cruelest truth. She had given up her dreams for someone who didn't even stay. And in that moment, she made a decision. Alone, scared, heartbroken, she booked a one-way ticket. She left. And when the plane lifted off the runway, tears ran down her face. Not because she was sad, but because she was finally free. And as she looked out the window at the clouds, she whispered to herself, "The person I was afraid of losing was already holding me back." Fear versus courage. This is the battlefield where destinies are decided. Most people let fear dictate their steps. They don't risk speaking because they fear rejection. They don't risk leaving because they fear loneliness. They don't risk starting because they fear failure. But fear only has the power you give it. And most people hand it everything. They hand fear their mornings. They hand fear their choices. They hand fear their lives. That person, the one you are meant to be, still feels fear, but acts anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision that something else matters more. And when you finally act in spite of fear, you realize fear was just smoke. It looked huge, it looked heavy, it looked impossible, but the moment you walk through it, it disappears. Mini story 4. There was a student who dreamed of building technology that could change lives. But every time he shared his ideas, his mentor dismissed him. It's too big. It's too complicated. People like you don't do things like that. The student feared losing his mentor's approval, so he shrank. He stayed small. But one night, exhausted by regret, he decided enough was enough. He risked losing his mentor, and he built anyway. It was messy. It was hard. He failed 100 times. But eventually, his work took shape. And years later, that same mentor tried to take credit for his success. But the student, now a leader, just smiled. Because he knew the truth, the person he was afraid of losing had already held him back. By risking their loss, he found his own voice. Consistency. That's where transformation happens. Most people start strong and fade. They leave toxic people one day, but run back the next. They make promises to themselves, but break them at the first sign of loneliness. That's why they stay stuck. That person, the one who wins, chooses consistency over feelings. They say, "I will not return to chains I broke. I will not trade freedom for comfort. I will not beg for validation from the very hands that tried to shrink me." And because they stay consistent, they grow. Step by step. Day by day. Pain by pain. Until freedom is no longer a fight, it's their nature. Mini story 5. There was a young entrepreneur. He left his circle of friends because they laughed at his ambition. At first, it was lonely. At first, it was painful. He questioned himself every night. But he stayed consistent. He built his business when no one believed. He worked through the silence. He endured the rejection. And slowly, his consistency paid off. Customers came. Growth came. Freedom came. And one day, those same friends called him lucky. But he knew the truth. Luck had nothing to do with it. Consistency did. And by being willing to lose them, he found what they never could, the courage to build a new life. Long-term vision. Most people can't see past today. They cling to relationships that shrink them because they're afraid of short-term pain. But short-term pain is the price of long-term freedom. Most people would rather feel safe for a moment than free for a lifetime. That person, the one you could be, sees further. They know that 10 years from now, regret will hurt more than rejection. They know that 1 year of courage is worth more than a decade of fear. They know that the pain of letting go now will become the fuel for growth later. And so they endure. And so they rise. And so they live with vision, not just feelings. And here's the ultimate shift: serving others. Most people think life is about keeping people who make them feel safe. But true purpose is about becoming someone who gives others permission to grow. You cannot serve others while chained. You cannot inspire others while afraid. You cannot lift others while carrying the weight of someone who keeps you down. That person, the one who chooses courage, serves by example. They show their children what freedom looks like. They show their community what courage feels like. They show the world what destiny sounds like when it refuses to be silenced. And in serving others, they find strength greater than any fear. Because when your life becomes bigger than your comfort, you finally break free. So look at the contrasts again. Most people live small. That person lives free. Most people trade destiny for approval. That person trades comfort for growth. Most people die alive, chained to fear. That person risks loss and finds life. And this is the truth you cannot escape: the person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. And until you face it, until you act on it, until you choose freedom over fear, your life will never move. But the moment you do, the moment you let go, the moment you reclaim your power, everything shifts. Energy returns. Vision clears. Destiny ignites. And the world finally sees who you really are. You've heard the truth. You've felt it burning inside you. And now the question is no longer, what if I lose them? The question is, what if I lose myself? Because deep down you already know, the person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. They have been the invisible wall between you and your destiny. They have been the weight on your shoulders, the silence in your voice, the hesitation in your steps. Every excuse you've ever made, every opportunity you've let pass, every dream you've delayed, it all traces back to this fear. The fear of losing them. But let me remind you again, the person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. And if you don't act now, when will you? Tomorrow? Next week? When the timing is perfect? When you finally feel ready? That day will never come. Perfection is a lie. Readiness is a myth. If you keep waiting, you'll wake up one day and realize you've been waiting your entire life. Waiting for someone else's permission. Waiting for someone else's approval. Waiting for someone else to free you from a cage you were born to break. But no one is coming. No one will do it for you. You must choose. You must act. You must decide today. Because today is all you have. And the longer you wait, the deeper you sink. Most people never make that choice. Most people stay in chains. Most people convince themselves that small is safe, that dependency is love, that compromise is loyalty. And most people die that way, alive on the outside, dead on the inside. But you are not most people. You are hearing this now because you know you were made for more. You feel the fire. You sense the urgency. You know the truth. The person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. And if you are brave enough to act, if you are brave enough to step out, if you are brave enough to let go, your entire life will change. Repeat this with me: I will not betray myself to keep someone else. I will not shrink to stay loved. I will not dim my light to stay safe. I will not hold back my destiny to hold on to someone who is already holding me back. Say it until you believe it. Say it until your bones remember it. Say it until your fear loses its grip. Because this is not just a decision, it's a declaration. A declaration that your life belongs to you. A declaration that your future is yours to create. A declaration that your power is no longer for sale at the price of someone's approval. This is the moment you cut the chain. This is the moment you take back control. Think about what happens when you don't. Picture your life 10 years from now if you stay the same. Picture the opportunities you'll miss. Picture the dreams you'll bury. Picture the regret you'll carry. The worst pain in life is not rejection, it's regret. Not what you lost, but what you never allowed yourself to find. Not who left you, but who you never became. And if you keep clinging to someone who is holding you back, regret will be your future. But if you choose courage now, if you choose freedom now, if you choose yourself now, life will open in ways you can't even imagine. I want you to remember this: you don't lose when you let go of someone who limits you. You win. You gain your voice. You gain your fire. You gain your freedom. The person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. Letting them go is not a loss, it's liberation. It's not the end, it's the beginning. The beginning of a life that is truly yours. The beginning of a future that is no longer chained to fear. The beginning of becoming who you were always meant to be. And yes, it will hurt. Growth always hurts. Letting go always burns. Freedom always feels like fire at first. But the pain of growth is nothing compared to the pain of staying stuck. The fire of freedom is nothing compared to the slow suffocation of fear. And when you walk through that fire, when you endure that pain, you will rise stronger, freer, more alive than ever before. Because the cost of courage is temporary pain. But the cost of fear is permanent regret. Which one will you choose? This is your wake-up call. This is your moment. This is your chance to stop living small, to stop clinging to chains, to stop dying alive. The person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. And the only thing between you and freedom is a decision. One decision. One moment of courage. One act of faith. To let go. To step forward. To reclaim your life. And when you do, you will discover that you were never weak. You were never broken. You were never dependent. You were always powerful. You were always enough. You were always capable. You just needed to stop giving your power away to someone else. So here is the final truth: the person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. They are not just a part of your story, they are the weight slowing the entire story down. They are the anchor dragging at your feet while your ship is built for oceans. And if you keep choosing the anchor, you will never see the horizon. If you keep choosing the chain, you will never taste freedom. If you keep choosing their comfort, you will bury your destiny. But you don't have to. You can choose differently. You can choose yourself. You can choose growth. You can choose freedom. This is the moment to rise. Not tomorrow. Not when they finally understand. Not when they finally clap for you. Not when the stars align. Today. Right now. In this breath. In this heartbeat. Because every second you wait, fear grows stronger. Every second you delay, chains tighten. Every second you hesitate, the person you are afraid of losing digs deeper into your soul, stealing more of your light. But the moment you decide, the moment you act, the moment you say, no more, everything shifts. Power returns. Courage returns. Life returns. Repeat this again. I choose myself. I choose my destiny. I choose my freedom. Say it until your voice shakes. Say it until your chest burns. Say it until you feel the weight start to lift. This is how chains are broken, not in silence, not in waiting, but in declaration and decision. And once you break them, once you let go, once you take that step, you'll never look back. Because the pain of letting go will fade, but the power of becoming will stay forever. Imagine standing at the end of your life. Imagine looking back. Will you smile knowing you lived fully, courageously, freely? Or will you ache with the regret of wasted years, of dreams buried alive, of a soul chained by fear? The choice is yours, but the time is short. Life doesn't wait. Destiny doesn't wait. And neither should you. Because the person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. And if you don't let go now, you may never get the chance again. Most people will not do this. Most people will stay. Most people will waste their lives holding on to people who were never meant for them. But you are not most people. You are hearing this because you are ready. Ready to rise. Ready to fight. Ready to become. Ready to walk away from fear and into freedom. Ready to trade smallness for greatness. Ready to step into the life that has been waiting for you all along. But you must choose. You must act. You must do it today. And when you do, when you finally break free, when you finally let go of the person who was holding you back, you will see the truth so clearly it will bring tears to your eyes. You never needed them. You never needed their approval. You never needed their permission. You never needed their presence to be whole. You were always enough. You were always powerful. You were always chosen. And the only thing standing in your way was fear. Fear of loss. Fear of loneliness. Fear of rejection. But once you face it, once you step through it, once you choose courage over fear, you win. You live. You rise. So here is the call. Here is the decision. Here is the moment that will define your life. Let them go. Let go of the person you are afraid of losing. Let go of the fear. Let go of the chains. Step into your freedom. Step into your fire. Step into your destiny. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not when it feels safe. Today. Right now. In this breath. In this heartbeat. Because your future is waiting. Your purpose is waiting. Your power is waiting. And the only way to reach it is to let go of what is holding you back. Say it one last time, louder than ever. The person I am afraid of losing is already holding me back. And I refuse to be held back any longer. I choose freedom. I choose courage. I choose destiny. I choose myself. And I will never go back. Because once you taste freedom, once you feel the fire of your own life, once you stand tall in your own power, you will never again settle for change disguised as love. You will never again trade your soul for comfort. You will never again die alive to keep someone else happy. You will live fully, boldly, fiercely, and the world will finally see who you really are. Not the version they allowed, not the version they approved, but the version that was always inside you, waiting to be unleashed. This is the ending, but it is also the beginning. The beginning of a life unchained. The beginning of a destiny unstoppable. The beginning of you, fully alive. The decision is yours. The time is now. The power is in your hands. The person you are afraid of losing is already holding you back. Let go and rise.